Well, good evening, everyone. It's on or about 6:30, and I will call this first meeting of 2020 to order and ask everyone who has them to please silence any electronic devices you may have, and I'll just make sure I've done that myself. And I will note that Councillor Tadman has sent regrets for this evening. And we'll start with a motion by Councillor LeBlanc, second by Councillor Rowley, that Council approve the January 13th, 2020 Council agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest, and if so, please state the general nature thereof. There are none noted. Are there any announcements this evening? Councillor Bateman.
Thank you, Mayor. On January 9th, on behalf of the Mayor and Council, I attended an event, recognition event and celebration for the Alzheimer's Society, a dementia-friendly community. They had guest speakers. It was well attended, and they gave out awards, and there was the Trillium Grant. But out of that, I'll pass it over, and maybe Candace can pass it on to Ben Hagerman. They've got a thing called Platemates 2020, and I think they did it in 2019 as well. Each month of the year, they have a social group for people with memory loss, their families and their partners in care. And it caught my attention because there's actually, April is the month that it's being held here in Brighton, the Platemates. So it'd be nice if we could get that up on the website for anybody that has family members suffering from dementia. They could attend the event right here in Brighton.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. We'll get that over to the clerk. Any other announcements? Councillor LeBlanc.
On behalf of Council and the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, I attended the Cattlemen's Association AGM. I learned a lot what goes on in Northumberland County for the cattle and the stress that they're under right now because of only one abattoir, but also how much meat they donate to different activities in Northumberland County, Quinte West, and around to do stuff. It was an amazing night, and I made a lot of friends for the council and stuff. It was good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? None noted. Thank you both. Move on to the adoption of the minutes. Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, second by Councillor Rowley. The Council approved the December 16th, 2019 Council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We have no statutory public meeting this evening, so we will move into delegations. Our first delegate is Marion Kelly with regard to property tax financial assistance. Ms. Kelly? Are you Marion Kelly? Come on forward here. We'll get someone to set up the microphone for you. As you're preparing for that, I'll let you know the delegations have 10 minutes to make their presentation to Council.
My presentation is going to be very short and sweet.
Okay.
Basically, first question is, did anybody here receive the form that I...
Could you draw the microphone just a little bit closer to you? Members of Council are having trouble hearing you.
Okay, what I'm wondering is if the piece of paper that I presented as a delegation, whether or not that was submitted to you people to read or not.
The one you submitted to the clerk's office for this?
That's correct.
No, it was not.
Okay, then I'll start from the beginning. I just didn't want to repeat myself.
We were provided information in an email around your situation, but if you please present to us the information you want us to hear this evening.
Okay, well, this evening my goal is to establish whether or not the council can delegate some people to form a committee in order to review my tax situation in my hopes that you'll be able to waive interest and penalties against my taxes. And I was hoping to be able to handle this situation other than in a public forum. That's why I'm asking for the committee. I know that Northumberland their council does have a mechanism for that, so I'm wondering whether you do. And other than that, I've been trying for 4 years now to get to the point where I'm here before you today. And a lot of what I've found is that anytime I've been trying to get some help and get to the right person or people to look at my situation, I've been moved from person to person, and sometimes my questions have been answered, sometimes they haven't, but that's why it's taken me as long as it has to get this far. I've been through several different people, and that's another reason that I'd like, maybe a committee of about 3 people to decide what happens here, rather than a huge number of people or everybody pointing back to the same person.
Thank you very much. So what I will do is open the floor up to members of council for questions of clarification. Members of council? There are none noted. Thank you very much. I will say that it would be unusual for us to form a committee for that purpose. We have paid accountable staff that deal with taxes and issues that you're dealing with, and we would normally simply ask members of the public, property taxpayers, to work through our staff process.
Through whom?
In your situation, I believe you could start with the tax collector, also named Ms. Kelly.
I've spoken to her several times, and I can't get answers.
And if that doesn't work, then to the Director of Finance, Ms. Whitfield. And
I've spoken to her as well.
If that doesn't work, then to our CAO, Mr. Castleman.
And I've spoken to Mr. Castleman.
Well, then I'm guessing you have the answer that the municipality was willing to give you. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that you're satisfied with that answer.
I haven't been told whether or not my interest and penalties can be waived or not.
And that's not something I'll to be discussing in a public forum with you. But Mr. Castleman, perhaps you would be in touch with Ms. Kelly to give her that answer? Yes. Thank you. Is that all then?
I believe so.
Thank you.
You have my information still, Mr. Castleman? Okay. And one other question that I have is, several times I have been told that the system is a 2-tier system, and I've been led to believe that the other tier, Northumberland County, may be more able than the municipality to do something for me, to assist me. However, I've been in contact with them as well, and they're directing me back to the municipality. So everyone keeps going in a big circle.
Have you been in touch with Glenn Dees, the Director of Finance at Northumberland County? DEES?
Not specifically, no, but I had a lady named, I think it was Nancy McLeod. She emailed me and told me after I gave her my address to deal with this council. So
well, this municipality would be the one to deal with for your lower tier, your municipality of Brighton property taxes, but the Northumberland County would be the one to talk to about your Northumberland County taxes. So Glenn Dees is the Director of Finance at Northumberland County.
Okay.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that Council receive the delegation from Marion Kelly regarding request for property tax financial assistance. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you.
Our second delegation is Vanessa Lobo and Jason Landry regarding the dog control bylaw number 287, 2005. So again, I'll just let you know that we offer 10 minutes for you to provide your delegation to council.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Well, thank you and the council for entertaining me yet again. I see myself before you, and it probably won't be the last time because I just enjoy your company so much. Today I'd like to talk about what would be 8.1, 8.2 of the Animal Control Bylaw for the municipality of Brighton, and its reference to the amount of animals that one dwelling can hold. I say this from a personal perspective, and my neighbor Vanessa Lobo is here with me. She also this bylaw affects her as well, and I imagine it affects a lot of people, but a lot of people don't actually follow the bylaw. Similar to my last conversation with you guys in reference to towers, heights, and all that stuff. So I'm going to let you know, I'm going to go through a small story like I did last time to let you know how I feel about this, and then give you my specific requests if you would entertain that, please. When I was younger, I grew up on a farm. We had 4 or 5 dogs, maybe 6. Can't remember. I was pretty young. There was lots of business going on. Every child kind of had their own, and we enjoyed that. We grew up and we were healthy. We ate dirt and had germs. I thank my immunity for that. Then as I carry on through life, I found myself a member of the military, served overseas, as we previously discussed. I've had my issues, my trauma, and now I have a service dog. Or at least I had a service dog until this summer when he passed away after 8 years of service with me. My family members that live with us, we have extended family. Because of financial times, it is not cost efficient to keep everybody in a retirement facility. We don't have that. We don't make a lot of money. I'm just a public servant. So they live with us, and they have their companion pets as well. Previously, a couple years ago, I came here. You authorized a zoning change for my property so I could build a second dwelling for my dad to move in, because I don't have enough room in my house for him, because my in-laws are already there. Well, now he's coming with a couple animals too. And I'm not going to tell a man who's, 67 years old, has his pets, that he can't bring them. That would crush his heart, crush his spirit, and he's already survived 3 heart attacks. I'm not going to give him a 4th one. Vanessa Lobo is not much different of a circumstance, where she had her own canine animals, and then her family, mother I believe, she joined her little commune for whatever reason it may be, personal. I'm not going to tell her story, there's no point to that, but her mother came with a couple animals, and now she's up to 5. We don't want to break the law. I don't want to be a lawbreaker. I don't want to have more animals, but I guarantee we drive around the county, we're going to see a couple people that have more than 3, and we're going to see people that have them that are not even registered. So, I've done a little bit of digging. We've talked to Ms. Candice Dorian in reference to this, and I've done some research that I think I want to share with you, and potentially propose an amendment, or at least a review of the dog control bylaw, since it is pretty dated. I believe 2002. And that's taken into account that I did notice the new bylaws that went up on the website 2019 in December, and it looks very, very nice, and it's more clear than the previous ones were, so I'm happy to see that. So let's talk first about the neighboring counties and how they're progressing through, and how they're taking in animal control, specifically dogs. Quinte West, our neighbors to the west, they have dog registration. In their article, section 5, article 5.6, it says that in urban areas, the maximum allowed dogs in the neighborhood is 3. It makes sense. Usually in an urban environment, smaller properties, smaller houses, smaller amount of dogs. Article 5.7, or the same Quinte dog registration, says that rural residents are allowed to have 5 dogs. To me, that makes sense. Larger property, larger space, larger families normally, more dogs. I get it. When I move into our neighbors to the east, or correction, to the west, it was east first. Yeah, sorry, Trenton's east, Crimey's west. Maximum allowable is 3 dogs. Well, I get that. But they do something different. They allow 2 different kennel licenses, and their kennel license is not as controlled as ours. To get a kennel license in our township, we have to get zoned, because there's literally only 4 zoning areas in our township that allow us to have a kennel. Now, these kennels are not kennels like you would presume, 20, 30 dogs and barking all day. We're talking a kennel that allows up to 8 dogs. We're talking like a daytime boarding, business boarding, extended family, not necessarily for business or for profit. And that's one class. And then there's another class of kennel, and that can be applied for, openly applied for. Whereas in our township, we need to have a specific RU2, 13, 14, and 22 to even be lucky to get a kennel. And that's if we meet the criteria. And I can give you the Cranby documents if you want that, Your Worship. We go into Trent Hills. Trent Hills is very clear on their policy. Trent Hills allows 3 dogs urban, 5 dogs rural. Nothing really much more to that. So our neighbors, and we have no neighbors to the south. That's just a big, it's just a big lake. So I've looked east, west, and north, and I've found our neighbors that we have, and they all have laws that allow more, especially in the rural communities, and they understand that. Their laws are a little newer. They've been reviewed as of more late than ours have. 17 years later since the first law was, or the first, I guess, doctrine or bylaw was introduced, I don't see a review date on it. Specifically to that article, I've searched the archives. I have not found anything that directly addresses this idea. And then I go even further, is that maybe council would entertain allowing kennels a smaller number occupancy kennels in the area. I look at Cranby Township and I see, I'm not going to go as far as say it's a money grab. That's not the idea. That's not the intent of what I'm getting at. But I think they do it in a responsible manner where it's applied for. And if there's abuse, whether it be noise violations like a nuisance or it's sanitation, a complaint can be made. It can be investigated in appropriate manners. And then the license or permit can be revoked. So it allows a township to keep control over in case an individual gets out of control. We don't have that ability here. You have to be one of the 4 zones to be able to have a kennel in this area. At the end of the day, right now with the zoning bylaws, I can't get my next service dog. That's hard. I can't let my dad move in with his animal, and that's hard. So that's why we are here, because I don't know if you have dogs at home. I don't know if you have companion pets. Maybe you have an iguana. But it's proven that they help those with mental issues, acuity issues, service issues. And I think that it would be a good thing that we look into this law and perhaps, like our neighboring environments, maybe adopt a new policy. I think that's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. We appreciate your delegation. I do know that staff has undertaken a review of the bylaw, likely in no small part because of your requests and the information you've provided them. The motion I will be reading simply receives the delegation, but Councillor Rowley, would you like to refer it to staff?
Yes, I would like to add that note, please, Mayor, if we could refer to staff for a review.
And Councillor LeBlanc, are you okay with that? Okay. And when they conduct that review, folks, they'll take into account this information that you've provided, but especially the information you provided from neighboring municipalities.
So then, Your Worship, if I could add something else.
Yeah.
Presently, Ms. Lobo, unintentionally is contrary to the bylaw. And if this process, and if everyone is willing to undergo a review, if she can be granted an exception for her 2 additional canines until this review is finished, at the very minimum.
That's entirely possible. We could, I guess we would get staff to come forward with a request to make exception to the bylaw. Can we count on that early in February? And as the senior manager who takes care of bylaw enforcement, I'm sure that we can make sure that nothing happens in the meantime. Okay. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley. Oh, sorry. I'll open the floor to Council for questions of clarification. Anyone? Councillor LeBlanc?
Thank you for your service again, Mr. Ferguson. Mr. Ferguson, you came up with a comment, you said that you wouldn't be allowed to have your service dog that would bring you over the limit. Is that true?
To my understanding, yes.
Well,
The other townships have a provision that does not force registry for service animals, but their scope of service animals is quite narrow, mostly police dogs and service dogs like for the blind and the hearing impaired potentially. There's nowhere that deals with, and I don't want to bring this issue up now, this is something later down the road, I'm a minority in this, so to bring a TAD, PTSD, or a therapy dog to that list, I didn't want this to be an exhausting conversation and waste your time with that.
no, you're wasting our time. This is the time it should be brought up. The thing is, we should also look in this bylaw to exempt PTSD dogs and service dogs, not be part of that group of dogs, the 3 you would allow in your 4, to have that done.
It still doesn't, and I agree with you, Councillor, thank you very much for the question.
But the thing is, I'm a vet, but I didn't go through what you went through, and all the damages that you've gone through, and all the injuries you've had.
And he means
IEDs and stuff.
veteran, not veterinarian. Just
Veteran.
I get it, but I also don't want this to...
Did I say veterinarian?
no, you said vet.
Vet. All right. Say a vet.
wanted to
He
be clear.
understands.
I
It's
also don't want
jargon.
this to be seen as a crutch, though. That's not why I'm here. That's not why I put my heart on the table. I want you to understand that I'm not the only one with this. There's people that are silently that suffer, that want these animals, or that are not going to voice. They're not going to bring themselves out of the closet. It's not only me that I'm speaking for. I'm speaking for Miss Lobo. I'm speaking for her mother. I'm speaking for my dad. I'm speaking for the people down the street. I'm speaking for everyone who won't come in those doors.
I've seen Mrs. Logo's dogs on Facebook and all the prizes and all the awards she's won through the United States and Canada for what she does with her animals. They're very well maintained, very well taken care of. I know that. The comment that I have is about you with your service dog and your service animal, that it should be part of the bylaw that you get exempted. It shouldn't be part of the 3 if you're going to have those, but not have an absorbent amount, too many, right? You only need the 1.
17 would be nice.
No. I have 3. So,
No, I get it. I understand that, and thank you very much for the acknowledgement. If that could be added to the bylaw control for the dog control, that'd be great. That's not my goal, but thank you very much. That's just an added bonus of being here.
Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. Councillor Bateman?
I was just going to ask for you, Mayor, or perhaps the clerk, under 8.2, we can do that now, can we not? The exemption, or does it have to go back?
If you want, in fact, we can do it right now because I don't have a motion on the floor. But let's clear the delegation and then we can have a quick chat about that if you'd like.
Could you include me in that too, if you're going to do a motion? That'd be great.
Councillor Anderson, did you have a question or comment? You were pointing at Councillor Bateman. Thank you very much. Anyone else? So I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The council received the delegation from Vanessa Lobo and Jason Landry regarding the dog control bylaw 287-2005 and refer to staff for a review and a report. Is there any further discussion? Councillor LeBlanc.
does that motion also say that nothing's to be done until the review has taken place for her extra 2 dogs?
It does not, because it would be inappropriate of council to make that motion. That would be an operational concern that Ms. Doran can manage from her office. Anything else?
I think that would be my comment as well. I think Candace has heard our concerns and heard concerns of the delegation. I'm sure she can figure it out.
Thank you. Anything else? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? That motion is carried.
All right.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, councillors. That would be appropriate.
Councillor Bateman? Did you want to proceed with your suggestion? Now would be the time.
I'd be comfortable proceeding with that because when you read 8.2, it can be revoked at any time, so we can wait for once it comes back, then we proceed with whatever Candace and the Clerk's Department presents.
Could you be clear about what section 8.2 you're referring to in the dog control bylaw?
Yeah, it just says application can be made for an exemption under this section to council to exceed the maximum number of dogs allowed. If approved, council reserves the right to specify the number of dogs kept and may reverse it at any time or reverse their decision without prior notice, depending on the prevailing circumstances.
Okay, so the only thing I would point out is we have not received application.
So yeah.
Right? So perhaps, we're obviously not going to enforce our current bylaw while we're reviewing unless it becomes necessary in other circumstances too. But perhaps we could reach out to the Lobos and the Landrys and ask them to make application under 8.2, just to make it all official, unless you come back with some radical change to the bylaw, which I'm going to suggest isn't going to happen. But on an individual basis, anybody can apply to be exempt from almost any bylaw, right? Mr. Parkinson, do you see any yellow sheets in that? There are no citizens' comments. Thank you very much. Which takes us into staff reports. Our first report is with regard to the skateboard park expansion project. It's an update from Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
I'd just like to highlight that, yes, we are done the design phase, and you have the package with all the designs in it. There's a nice Bristol board copy that I brought. Any of the public wishes to see it, again, you have it. I'd like to thank the ad hoc skateboard committee. They are here tonight. Have our chair, Tanya Light, and we have George and Kathy McCormick. I'd also like to thank everyone that pledged donations towards this, council as well, for the reserve funding. I think it's going to be a great success, and I look forward to having a shovel ceremony for groundbreaking later in the spring.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I know there's a small, dedicated, enthusiastic, and mighty group that got behind this project, and thank you for spearheading it from a staffing level. Council has been supportive of this initiative and will continue to be, I'm sure, as we move forward. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council receive the staff report as information and direct staff to prepare tender documents for issuance in the early spring. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. At budget time, will we be discussing this at all, Jim? Are there dollars that the municipality will need to pitch in to complete this project, to move forward?
No, there isn't. It's all covered.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Through you, Mayor, I was amazed when I was down at the movie to find out that all this money was raised by the group in 2 years. Congratulations.
I should say that it will be discussed at budget, but there is no tax support at this coming budget.
All the money's in reserve at
Yes.
this stage, is what
Yes.
Mr. Miller's trying to get at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in future, it will probably be just some maintenance and staff costs, which would be just kind of per the norm.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. And 9.2 is 2020 budget schedule. Ms. Whitfield, we've read your report, and I'm not going to ask you to comment because I think members of council, you have nothing to say anyway, that's awesome. I think members of council want to chime in on the schedule because there are some conflicts with some community group activities that are going on, AGMs and so on. So I did ask everyone in an email to bring their calendars tonight so we could have a bit of an open dialogue about what that schedule will look like. So, that being the case, I'm going to go through the list here, and if you have a conflict or you know of a conflict in the community that will require our attendance, please chime in. The first one is Monday, January 27th at 6 p.m. That one's good. Tuesday, January 28th at 6 p.m. Councillor Bateman.
January 28th is the AGM in Codrington,
Right.
Codrington Community Center.
So is everyone okay if we do not meet for budget on that evening? Yes? Yes? I assume there's more than one of us who wants to go to the COD AGM. So that's what we need to look at. What does Wednesday look like for everyone? Wednesday the 29th. There are no committee meetings. The clerk informs us that there are no committee meetings. And I have an event in Coburg for Habitat for Humanity, but it's not compulsory. I'm happy to come here for a budget meeting. So Wednesday, January 29th at 6 p.m. is in. So do we want to go to... Okay, the next day I can't do. So we'll go to Monday. Nope, that's a council meeting. Tuesday, February 4th at 6 p.m. I believe that's the DBIA AGM.
DBIA AGM, thank you.
I'm sure more than one of us wants to go to the DBIA AGM, so the 4th is out. How's the 5th? 5th is okay with everyone? 5th stays in. Wednesday, February 5th at 6 p.m. Thursday, the 6th. How's that for committee meetings? Madam Clerk?
On this calendar, it's great. So we're skipping over the 5th?
No, we're doing the 5th. The 5th is in.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
4th is gone.
Yeah.
5th is in. 6th is in. All right. That takes us to February 11th. Everyone okay? Same as is in here now. Yeah. Meeting? What time?
We meet at 4:30.
Usually out in an hour? Yeah, okay. February 12th. Everyone good? So that's Wednesday, February 12th, 6 p.m. And then we move to the 8th. Okay. So that would be the council meeting where we present the budget. And we'll be okay because we haven't really moved anything. We just shifted a couple dates. But we should be okay for that. Right? Now that assumes we're done. Right? That assumes we're done council deliberations. If we get to February 12th and we decide we still need more time, that comes off the table and we move things into March. So is everyone comfortable with 6 budget meeting dates for deliberation? And if you are, then with those minor changes, we will go ahead. Could you either put your microphone on or speak louder about your sarcastic remarks there, Mr. Anderson? No? Okay, so I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, second by Councillor Anderson. And gentlemen, if you're okay with this, it's going to read as amended. That council approved the 2020 budget schedule as amended. And someone wrote all that down other than me, right? We're good? Is there any discussion? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you all. Our next report is with regard to provincial modernization funding. Mr. Castleman, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
The only highlight is we've provided for your consideration a list of various projects that we being staff believe will bring the municipality to the next level. In arriving at those various projects, we took a look at our strategic plan and the number of different initiatives that were put in place by council back in April of 2019. We also took a look at the organizational review that was conducted in August of 2019. We've been talking to our counterparts across the county, in particular myself with the CAOs across the county, and have some different ideas about different partnerships that we may enter into in the future. So what we've done for this evening's purposes is simply list the various projects that will be brought forward for your consideration during the 2020 budget deliberations. So we'll be talking in more detail at that time. This is an information item. The I would say the majority of the projects will be brought forward during the 2020 budget deliberations, not all of them. We have 8 years to spend this money. Obviously, we want to get at the efficiencies and bring them online as quickly as possible, but we're not going to get to all of the projects in 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Castleman. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council receive the modernization funding report for information purposes and refer the individual project approval to the 2020 budget process. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. That was Mr. Castleman answered my question as far as we were kind of going through this during budget as far as looking at details, and I like the idea that there's a lot of stuff there, and I know we can't get it all done, but it's good to look at.
Thank you. Any other discussion? In my discussions with Mr. Pacini, our MPP, he asks fairly frequently what our intent is with the modernization money. So I have advised Mr. Castleman that assuming council passes this motion and puts it forward to 2020 budget process, I will be sharing this with Mr. Pacini so that he can share it with whoever asks him, I'm sure, on an ongoing basis. No doubt the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Councillor Vink, or Deputy Mayor Vink, pardon me.
So just for clarity, we're going to pass these things individually with each project individually, and then I'm sure some will come in less or more, or I know you say 8 years. What are we thinking? A lot of these things, I mean, they're great, and I'd love to see them done as soon as possible. I mean, really, are we looking at it's going to take us 8 years, or are we going to get it done over a couple of years?
So the quick answer is we're not going to wait 8 years. We have 8 years to spend the money. Is it our intent to let that money dither away over the course of that period of time, or do we want to get on with the efficiencies? Obviously, we want to get going. We can't. A lot of great ideas here. We can't do it all in 1 year. So it might take a couple, 3 years in order to get in place. The quicker, the better.
Thank you. Anyone else? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. Our final staff report is with regard to the flood policy from our Public Works Department. And Mr. Parkinson, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time, Your Worship.
I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council receive the staff report regarding flooding policy and further that Council adopt the attached flooding policy that is in accordance with Council Motion 2019-826. Is there any discussion? I just have one question, perhaps for members of Council. If I flip way to the bottom of our report where it gets to the policy, there is a note that we will not assist with the removal of the waste, so sandbags and sand removal. And I'm wondering if that is in any way onerous. Does anyone see that? Does anyone other than me see that as in any way onerous? I just wonder if we should assist with the removal of sand and bags. Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Well, we had a procedure last year was you had to have them at the road, we'd pick them up. I think that's reasonable for us to go to shoreline and in people's backyard. I don't think that's where I would go. So I agree with you. I think we should at least have some service to pick up and give it a limited time too, so things, because I know there's some out there still sitting there ready to go this year, but may not work as well this year too, so anyway.
Yeah, some people didn't put their bags at the end of their driveway for pickup. Yes,
so I agree with you on that one.
I just think we're already being pretty heavy-handed with this policy, and so far so good without pushback. We haven't seen too much pushback, but at some point I think we need to remember that we should be offering some service. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I don't think we're being heavy-handed. I think we're being realistic. But I do believe that we should offer to pick up the bags at the end of the driveway. I think that's a good idea.
Councillor Rowley.
Same comment.
Councillor Anderson.
You know, we always ask, and everybody's asking the municipalities and the government to assist with these hardships that are happening because of, and a lot of blame's going on the lake. But there's a lot going on in this world right now that's causing a lot of these problems, and I think we can do as much as we can, but I think one thing we should be all doing is, again, asking our provincial government and federal government to assist the municipalities even, so we can assist our people, our taxpayers, our people that in whatever way is even more reasonable for us to be able to do that. I think we're being very reasonable. Yes, I agree with what we're doing, and I'm glad you brought that up tonight. But I think we need, and I've talked to our members as you have too, and I'm not getting answers. If you give a little, we're going to have to give a lot, because it's the deeper we get into this, you use an expression, but the deeper we get into this, it's going to be very costly. So we have some big problems, and everybody's working very hard to address those problems, but I don't see where a municipality that like Brighton can answer all these questions that are coming at us and demands coming at us to correct these things. So I think we're doing good things.
I agree. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Rowley?
Thank you, Mayor. I think I'm the seconder on that motion. Do we need to maybe add something to?
I'll come back to that.
All right.
Councillor Bateman?
I was just going to echo what the Deputy Mayor said. I'd be in favor of picking these up if you set it out in the policy that they're at the end of the driveway, because then you can ensure proper disposal of them as well, so Mr. Parkinson and his crew aren't picking them out of storm drains and ditches and everything else as well.
Councillor Anderson?
You know, and if there was a time frame that it could be done where we even contract it out versus putting more pressure on our staff to continually, which backs them up into the season to do roads, to do the things that everybody else wants. And I think that was part of your problem last year, is timing to run to the aid of everybody, but at the same time, we had a big cleanup, and there was damage from those floods on our property as well as on the municipal property as well as, so perhaps that should be something that could be looked at on the side in budgeting, that we do have a contingency plan for cleanup versus, so it doesn't affect.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc?
I agree also with Councillor Anderson and the Deputy Mayor, but also look at the finances through them, is that with the county, they get 38% of our taxes, and we get to keep 51%. Looking at the county budget of 2020, how much money was towards our citizens came from the county to assist in the sandbagging or the sand or anything? Asking the Preston that question.
You don't have to. The answer is none. You already know the answer, Councillor LeBlanc. You're just baiting. You're just baiting everyone at this stage. You know that, right? Staff, how would you like us to proceed? Do you want us to refer this back to you and bring it back, or just approve it as amended tonight? Everyone's clear on the amendment that we would be picking up sand in bags at the end of a flood season, as long as put at the end of the driveway, similar as we've done in the past. Is that fair and clear?
Yep, understood.
So Deputy Mayor and Councillor Rowley, I've added as amended after flooding policy. Is that okay? So the motion is moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council receive the staff report regarding flooding policy, and further that Council adopt the attached flooding policy as amended, that is in accordance with Council Motion 2019-826. Is there anything further? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. We'll move into notices of motion and motions. This is a motion that's coming forward from the December 16th, 2019 meeting, and it's moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Bateman. The Council requests staff to review and enforce the cannabis regulations within the municipality of Brighton, whereas any individuals growing, cultivating, and harvesting more than the limit of 4 plants per dwelling be required to operate under the municipal bylaw that states they be hooked up on town water and sewer. Councillor LeBlanc, I'll let you speak to your motion.
Yes. Thank you, Your Honor. What it is that when I look at this thing, we've already passed the bylaw where large operations have to be set up on town water and sewer. the Health Canada has already approved that each individual can have 4 plants. And the smell and stuff goes crazy when you have a lot more than that. When you have these large operations like Bowes Road. Even though they have a Health Canada license, or they have, you got to look at the documents behind it. They have to have a point of impingement for their owners. They're supposed to keep stuff on their own property. They're only supposed to grow 400 plants. They're growing more than 400 plants. It's 400 plants in 1 year. So the thing is, by controlling them, by bringing them into our industrial park and putting them on town water and sewer, it's not affecting them allowing by Health Canada to grow 4 plants. But these operations that are set up like behind my house, and they got 4 greenhouses set up there. Bowes Road just decided to start building an additional greenhouse without going and getting a building permit just in the last month and a half, which they shouldn't be doing. So you got to bring it back under control, and the odors and the nuisance that are affecting everybody. It's not like chicken manure, it's not like cow manure being spread. That stays for 3 or 4 days. This stuff lingers for a long time, and there's also the light pollution that I see from my house that causes an adverse effect that you can't sleep. As soon as you wake up, you see this big moon shining off your stuff. And the people that live beside it, I don't know how they even eat their food, because the first thing you do is you sense a smell. So whenever you go to a steak, you're going to smell marijuana, or it goes onto their clothes. It's one of the ways of controlling it. So in that, with the clerk, we talked to the OPP, and I talked to the finances, the legal people of the OPP. And they come up with this type of motion. You already have part of the bylaw. Now you got to have the next part, which is to enforce it. And this allows it that they got to follow every rule that's in their health document. And one of them is you can't let the odors travel in effect and cause an adverse effect to your neighbor. And you got to keep it up, and you can only have 400 plants. Because I know this, because they've come and tried to grow on my land in Napanee, and the township in Napanee have stopped them dead cold. They won't let any more, and the ones that are existing, they're closing them up. Because they're not controlling, they're not conforming with a large operation that has to have odor control, light control, and everything in place. They don't. That's right, my motion, Councillor.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And I for sure would like to see more control over it and not have operations popping up here, there, and everywhere. I think this motion is very short. It talks about requesting staff to review and enforce. I was wondering if we could maybe get the review first, and then we can take a look at it. Do you know what I mean? Like, we need to make sure it covers everything, and that's what I would be interested in seeing at this point.
Mr. Castleman.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's an excellent point. Certainly that review has commenced. I've certainly been chatting with our legal people with respect to what our options are from a legal perspective, and certainly this council turned their mind to this whole issue back in December, January of 2019. And you put in place a policy at that time. And so the first issue that I want to get answered is the existing operation on Bowes Road, is it what I'll refer to as a legal non-conforming operation, yes or no? That will determine the next steps. So just started the review with Mr. Ewart last week in anticipation of our discussion tonight. And once I have that review completed, I'll come back and have a quiet discussion with council with respect to outlining the various options that we have on a go-forward basis.
Councillor Bateman.
So the review that's undergoing, is that reviewing just the operation on Bowes Road or in general throughout the municipality? I think at last count, hit or miss, we have 10 to 12. There's one directly across from Bowes Road on the number 2 out in the rural area. Are we reviewing the ones we know about?
Mr. Castleman.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the quick answer is we're going to focus on Bowes, and obviously whatever discussion that we have and investigation that we have with respect to Bowes, it's going to apply to the other operations that are throughout the community. So we'll try and treat everybody, once we've done our investigation, decided what option we want to go with, then we're going to treat everybody the same, and how we treat Bowes Road, we're going to try and treat some of the other operations throughout the municipality.
And in fairness, neither staff nor the OPP can conduct any investigations if they're not made aware of these operations. So if you are aware or become aware of an operation, then certainly discuss it with Mr. Castleman as we go down this road. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I just have a short explanation on legal non-conforming?
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, firstly, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm going to give it to you as I understand it from a practical standpoint. If I was doing something within the community that was legal on December 31st of 2019, and you passed a bylaw on January 3rd, 2020, that now says what I was doing last week is now illegal, well, then I would be able to hang my hat on a legal non-conforming status and would be able to continue on in that regard because your new policy postdated my operation.
Thank you for that. That was kind of where I was going. So when we're looking at some of these that were probably legal or illegal at the time before we kind of went through our bylaw process, there's not really a whole lot we can maybe do to change that then?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, needless to say, we're going to do our due diligence, and it's, in my view, quite onerous to prove that you have a legal non-conforming use. So we will certainly do our due diligence with respect to establishing whether there is a legal non-conforming use or not, and then we'll proceed accordingly.
Councillor Anderson.
Was it, the question is also, was it conforming prior to January 1st, 2020? So, I'm just saying, I mean, if it wasn't, then that doesn't mean anything. The other thing is, in your motion, Councillor LeBlanc, you're talking about 4 plants per dwelling. You said 400 plants. You're talking about an operation like Bowes Road, right? But I need to just get an answer on this, but go ahead. Was the 400 meaning?
So what it is, Health Canada has approved that each individual that's of legal age can grow 4 plants on their property.
Not 400, you said 400.
No, the new operations that's coming now is they do a rain cap, and they're getting a quick Health Canada license. They grow 400 plants, and then they disappear, and they leave everything there.
All right.
All they need is an address number, and they're going and they're popping these up all over the place.
Okay. So if we back up to your motion,
so if you, just as a thing, on my land on County Road 64, I have 3 addresses. They tried to get me to set up 3 there. I wouldn't allow it. In Napanee, I have 7 addresses. They tried to set them there. They're running around Ontario trying to set up these 400 plant, pop them up, rain shelter, gone. But the smell, the odors, you got to leave. The citizens got to do it. When it comes to non-conforming, when they got the Health Canada license, they're supposed to abide by a whole bunch of rules. If you have, it's called point of impingement. If you have something, you keep it on your property, you don't let it go. Like some of the neighbors that live beside us, or people driving by. The one that's popped up right beside me, that were popped up last year, the 3 greenhouses, all you gotta do is come out Bowes Road, turn right, look a quick left into the woods, and you'll see 3 greenhouses. You'll just see the shell of them. They grew there all year. They're not conforming. They passed them on, but the thing is, there isn't enough legal to go around. So they kind of do this, but when we talked with the legal of the OPP, they said you got to look at the rest of the documents. Even though they have the certificate, you got to read what they're supposed to conform to, how much they're allowed to grow, how much light they're supposed to do, what type of point of improvement, their odor, what type of fertilizer, where they're supposed to discharge their waste, how they're supposed to get rid of it. Like, in other words, I can't just send my stuff to a landfill, right? You got to dispose of it correctly. Here it isn't. They're not following the rest of the rule that goes with that permit.
Again, to get back to your motion, 4 plants is in the motion. That means anybody in town, in Brighton, sorry, that wants to grow floor plants, and then you want it enforced. So, isn't that a provincial or a federal offense if you grow more than 4 plants? Wouldn't it be enforced by the police anyhow? Is it something that our bylaw has to go around and enforce?
That would be
12 plants?
That would be OPP to enforce that.
Exactly. So it doesn't need to be something that we're asking.
No, but there are other issues specific to the Bowes Road facility. There are other issues that
Yes.
may require our attention.
So I think the motion says it needs a broader, I think it's good, I'm glad you brought it up to get on this, because we should be addressing it, boom. But I think that the 4-plant thing, I think it's got to be, this has to be broader, and it sounds like we're going that way. And it sounds like right?
Sounds like it.
So, I don't know how, so I agree with you, but I agree that we need to take it a lot.
I'm going to go to Councillor Bateman, but then we should probably talk about wording of the motion. Yeah, Councillor Bateman.
I was just going to say, I'm going to wait for the report from staff, because I think that's the way to go. But we're not unique as a community that this is the only community that this is affecting. Cranby Township is going through it now. It's been all over the paper where they've been shutting places down. And Quinte West, just recently in the last couple of weeks, Mayor Harrison was in the news where he's taken a company to court that has built facilities with building permits. So, the quicker we do it, it's better to get ahead of it before it gets way out of hand, because it's, that court case in Quinte West is probably not going to be cheap, and I don't think we want to go down that road.
So I'm going to suggest that we refer this to staff for a report. Is that fair?
It's okay.
Councillor Bateman? So I'm going to add and refer to staff for a report.
But they should come back before growing season starts again.
So do you want to put a date on that?
End of April?
It sounds like they're growing all the time, Doug.
Well,
They're not growing all the time. I am the neighbor directly beside it.
Thank you. So, and refer to staff for a report to be delivered to council for the first, you want the last meeting in April or the first meeting in May?
First meeting in May would be a good time to bring it. And for Ron Anderson, I've been to a lot of houses here, and you go out on their deck, even in Orchard Gate and you go there, they invite me for a cup of tea, and I see 4 plants, 8 plants right on their deck. That's legal.
That's legal if there's 2 people in the house anyway. So the motion now reads, as was, but I've added, and refer to staff for a report to be delivered to council for the first regular council meeting in May. You're okay with that, Councillor LeBlanc? You're okay with that, Councillor Bateman? Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. We have nothing under unfinished business, so we move into bylaws. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy chief building official. Is there any discussion? All those, go ahead, Councillor LeBlanc.
So the deputy building official would be Preston.
No, Patrick.
Says it.
Patrick Parkinson.
Oh, his brother. I thought it was you. Okay.
It's Patrick Parkinson, another Public Works employee. Is there any further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. Seeing how we now have 2, and I know at some point we used to do all of our plumbing and septic inspections in-house. Will something like that be coming back here that we can kind of claim those inspection fees for our own instead of handing them back to the county?
I'm not sure that's being contemplated, but I'll ask staff.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Not so long ago, we brought a new agreement before council for their consideration. So we recently signed on with the county to continue on with providing septic and sewage inspections. So that's something that, boy, we just dealt with, I'm going to say, in the last 2 or 3 months. Yeah.
May I ask if,
Go ahead.
Is that an annual renewal, or is that something that we have
3
to?
years.
So in 3 years, we could kind of revisit that then? Okay, thank you.
If we had If we had the want to do that, yes, we could. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. Our next bylaw is with regard to the skateboard park. Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, second by Councillor Rowley. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to authorize the treasurer to execute a grant funding agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton and the Ontario Trillium Foundation for the skate park expansion and revitalization project at King Edward Park. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Our next bylaw is with regard to the GFL land use agreement, moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading, and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a land use agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton and GFL Environmental Incorporated for the exclusive use of 1 acre for exclusive use of 1 acre of GFL Environmental Incorporated owned lands for the creation of a municipal off-leash dog park. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Our next bylaw is with regard to temporary borrowing, moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw being a bylaw to authorize temporary borrowing from time to time to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? The motion's carried. Our next bylaw is with regard to the interim tax levy, and it's moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to provide an interim tax levy for 2020 and to provide for the payment of taxes and to provide for penalty and interest. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. Our next bylaw is with regard to the reconstruction of Loyalist, Applewood, and Sharp Road. The engineering design of that, moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading, and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton and Mooney Metaxas Engineering Incorporated. Is there any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. I spoke with Mr. Preston just before the meeting started regarding this because I was curious as why we were looking at Loyalist, Applewood, and Sharp Road, considering all the construction that might be happening down there and wondering about all the other streets in town that need a lot of work as well. So he explained it well to me, so I'm thinking maybe he could explain it to everyone else.
Go ahead, Mr. Parkinson.
Through you, Your Worship. Yeah, this is just one of many projects that we're doing the engineering design and tender prep work so that we have shelf-ready projects when we hit budget time or if there's unexpected funding that comes out, that sort of thing. So just to have a series of different roads ready to tender.
Thank you. And unexpected funding is some of our favorite kind of funding. We hope we get more of it, but we don't count on it, do we? Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Our next bylaw is with regard to the engineering design for the reconstruction of Telephone Road, and it's moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading, and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton and Greer Galloway Group. Is there any discussion? Councillor LeBlanc.
Is it the Telephone Road on the north side or the south side of the 401, or both?
I believe it is on the south side. Go ahead, Mr. Parkinson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's for Telephone Road from County Road 30 to County Road 26.
The south side?
The south side.
It would be the one that is used by the collection trucks for garbage. Councillor Bateman.
Thank you, Mayor. Will this be affected by the county's plan and ours for the EDR?
That's the other way.
Okay.
So the county's wish is to make Telephone Road from County Road 30 through Crammy to County Road, is that 25? The EDR, but in order to do that, there would be a need for federal and provincial funding, and that grant was not approved, so that won't be happening anytime soon. It remains part of the plan, but it won't be happening anytime soon. Yeah, no, serious reconstruction would be required, that's why. That's why we need more money than local tax dollars could come up with. Is there any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We'll move into reports of advisory committees of council. Council reports. I have a motion. Sorry, this is the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting minutes. A motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that council receive the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting minutes from November 8th, 2019 as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. And a recommendation from that same committee, moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council receive the recommendation from the Accessibility Advisory Committee regarding snow removal at crosswalks and in the downtown area. Is there any discussion? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I did put my name on it because obviously it needs a name to come forward. I'm just curious, anyone on the Accessibility Advisory Committee, of course, we know that those streets need to be cleaned, and I think sometimes it doesn't happen just because of a backlog and staff trying to clean roads, and no doubt I've been downtown and I even have trouble getting through, to the sidewalk or whatever. I understand that. I understand where the complaints come from and why we need to make a point of this. I'm just wondering, is there a different way we can go about it? Is there something we can do different so that we don't have this? And I don't know what the answer is or if there's an answer for that. So I'm just asking the question of staff, perhaps.
Anyone care to field that one? Councillor Bateman, you're on the committee.
The only thing I can say, well, Preston, he's on the committee as well. I'm not sure if you were at the last one. It comes up every meeting. It's especially pertinent for those that are using any assistance, whether it's a walker or the cart. They say a little bit of snow really impedes them from getting up. They just want special attention spent to it because it does make it difficult, but I can also understand that when a snow comes down quickly, it's difficult to be there like that as well. So I'm not sure what the answer would be.
So I think that's probably why we're receiving the recommendation and not trying to direct staff for operational purposes with regard to this. I do know that staff makes a concerted effort to meet our minimum maintenance standards under the legislation, which means, of course, clearing roads first. That's what the province tells us we have to do. So I know staff are diligent in clearing sidewalks and doing what they can. So I'm happy to be receiving the recommendation. Is there anything further? Councillor LeBlanc.
Through your staff, through Preston. One of the things that has been brought to my attention by a lot of the citizens that go there at park is that if you leave a prolonged snow bank, when there's a big snow event, not right now, but a big snow event, maybe my email went around, big snow event, there's a large snow bank, they can't open the door on the passenger side or they get up because there's no way, or they got small paths. And if you go to Crammy or you go to other towns, relatively quickly they clean that up. And that was one of the points I wrote that email out that was brought to be my citizens. And I know the snow happened in November and in early December, but there wasn't anybody when they approached me, when they got me on that, if it could be looked at. That was the point. And I know you do the best you could.
Councillor Bateman.
I was just going to say, the two hot spots that come up a lot at the meeting, especially when a quick snowstorm, your post office and the CIBC are extremely busy, and the post office, we all know the mail doesn't stop. So those are the spots. Like the shop owners would probably love it cleared, but nobody's going to be shopping in a major snowstorm, but they still go to the post office and the bank. But maybe at the next meeting, we'll come up with something brilliant. Right, Preston?
Unless you live in the rural area, and my experience is that sometimes the mail does in fact stop. But that's, regardless of the motto, we'll move on from that. Is there anything further? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. And our next agenda item is the Advisory Committee, Community Events and Civic Awards Advisory Committee meeting minutes, moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, second by Councillor Rowley. The council received the Community Events and Civic Awards Advisory Committee meeting minutes from November 13th, 2019 as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And some recommendations out of their December 10th meeting. It's moved by Councillor LeBlanc, second by Councillor Rowley. That council receives or approves recommendations from the Community Events and Civic Awards Advisory Committee. One, that the Community Events and Civic Awards Committee recommends to council that an artist ambassador be appointed in the municipality of Brighton. That the Community Events and Civic Awards Committee recommends to council that changes to the Civic Awards event be accepted as per the attachments. And 3, that the Community Events and Civic Awards Committee recommends to council to approve the changes to the terms of reference. So is that receive or approve, Councillor LeBlanc? You okay with that, Councillor Rowley?
Yes, if I can just, some of us looked at our terms of reference, and with the changes, adding movies in the park and a few other things. There weren't a lot of changes, but there were just a few things that we thought that we needed to just tighten up from having looked at this over the last few years.
Very well, thank you. Anything further? Councillor Bateman?
I was just going to note that you'll see at our meetings that there's an Outstanding Young Citizen Award this year as well, or going forward, right? I think we changed the name of it, or did we add that?
I think the name's just going to be changed. Yeah, that's kind of what we were working on. There were just a few things, because we've changed a few things with the Civic Awards, with now having the Brighton and Crammy District Chamber of Commerce, that they do some of them that were just kind of overlapping. So we've eliminated a few and just kind of changed a bit of wording.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
With the community events, we did a trial this summer on having 3 vendors that were there for music in the park, and the DVIA would supply popcorn and stuff for the movies. Is that going to continue on?
Yeah.
Anything further? Deputy Mayor?
I'm just wondering when the Civic Awards are planned for?
I don't have the date right in front of me. Our subcommittee's meeting tomorrow, but I think it's either end April. I think it's early May. I think we're meeting early May.
Thank you.
As soon as you have that pegged down, could you let council know?
I should know by the end of tomorrow, so as long as I still have it in my mind, I will send an email with the date.
What's going on over there, Councillor LeBlanc?
Through you, could I ask the clerk a question on the vendors?
You can ask me, and I'll see if I want to pass that to the clerk.
Oh, the vendors, if it was only a trial, and how we would proceed into the motion, because it's a bylaw, to amend the bylaw for allowing for special events.
Understood. Madam Clerk?
We're reviewing the refreshment vehicle license and the special events permit to allow refreshment vehicles during a special event, and having an application system done. So yes, that's under review. It's not approved by the committee. It cannot be approved by the committee.
Because committees only offer advice to council.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
And Madam Clerk, we can anticipate that review will be done well in advance of warm season, of the need for this. Councillor Rowley?
Sorry, thank you. The same thing, just to clarify some of this, now that council has approved these changes, this doesn't need to go to the review committee to look this over. I just want to make sure. We kind of came here first. So.
Right, we did not refer this to the review committee.
Okay, so we're good to just move forward.
You are? Well, as soon as I say all in favor and everyone puts their hands up, we'll see what happens here. All in favor? Any opposed? Motions. Do you want to try again? Yes. All in favor? Those opposed? The motion's carried unanimously. Next minutes are Heritage Advisory Committee meeting. Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, second by Councillor Rowley, that Council receive the Heritage Advisory Committee meeting minutes from November 18th, 2019 as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Next is Rural Advisory, and it's moved by Councillor Rowley, second by Councillor LeBlanc, that Council receive the Rural Advisory Committee meeting minutes from October 24th, 2019 as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. The next minutes are Save Our Heritage Organization, moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The Council received the Save Our Heritage Organization Committee meeting minutes from January 10th, 2019, March 14th, 2019, April 11th, 2019, May 9th, 2019, June 13th, 2019, July 11th, 2019, August 8th, 2019, October 10th, 2019, and November 14th, 2019. Meetings as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Go ahead, Councillor LeBlanc.
The Heritage, through you, Mayor, the Heritage organization, is that a committee or is it a club?
It's an organization that we fund, and so we put a member on, but it's not a committee. It's not an advisory committee of council.
Okay, I just want to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? I'm going to try that again. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. We have no reports or minutes of statutory committees, boards, or external agencies. We move into correspondence, direction items, endorsements, and communications and petitions. The first is from the Alzheimer's Society, and it's moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson. The Council proclaimed January 2020 as Alzheimer's Awareness Month in the municipality of Brighton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. The next is from the United Shoreline Ontario with regard to hosting rallies in Ontario, specifically in Brighton. And it's moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council receive the correspondence from United Shorelines to host a rally on Thursday, January 23rd, 2020 in the municipality of Brighton. Is there any discussion? I would prefer that we support this. Simply because the rally is going to happen, but if we support it, then it's a municipal and council thing, and we will be co-hosting it. For your information, and I think I've let everybody know this, but we have secured the Christian Reformed Church. They hold, it's just a size thing. They hold 500 people. They're also able to live stream the event. Our fire chief has agreed to talk about flood mitigation at that event, and the Lower Trent has also agreed to talk about flood mitigation at that event as well. Ms. Delicate from the United Shoreline will be there to talk about floods and Plan 2014, do her normal spiel, and she'll also usually has a guest speaker piped into these events, and I think that's her intent as well on January 23rd. Deputy Mayor.
Can you make sure there's a seat saved for all of us?
Well,
stood in the foyer last time.
I can do that. And I will be inviting neighboring Lakeshore mayors and our MP and MPP. I've already invited the MP and MPP. I think they're both either in session or dealing with pre-budget consultation, so they may not be there, but I'm certain others along the Lakeshore will be. So I'm just making a note about saving the deputy mayor a seat. Go ahead.
Is this going to be along the same format as the Quinte West one we attended?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's going to be, I understand after reading this is going to be a series of these visits to other...
There'll be 7 along the Lakeshore in Ontario. We're the first.
Yeah.
Which is for 2020. Obviously, Quinte West was the very first, back when they held theirs. Yeah. Anything further?
I would say the same as saving a seat for the deputy mayor. Those of us who want to go there want to get there early.
I wrote council down.
Oh, you're going to give us a whole bench?
Save you all a seat.
We'll get a bench. No, it's just, we were at the one in Quinte West, and I mean, it was standing room only, and they shut the doors. It was so busy. So were you outside? Oh, so it was, I would encourage anyone, get there early.
Wheelchair.
I think I think there's, it's 6:30 is when it starts. I believe the doors will open at 6.
And you got to be there well before 6.
Yeah, I would suggest you be there well before 6, because it won't just be Brighton people. It will be it will be whomever United Shoreline is able to contact. The last one they did, they referred to as a rally. I specifically asked her, I'm not a fan of rallies, so I specifically asked her not to call it a rally. I didn't think the municipality of Brighton should be hosting a rally, so to speak. So it is being referred to as a flood talk. But we know the MO of United Shoreline, so they'll be rallying their troops regardless. Any further discussion? Councillors Bateman and Anderson, I've changed receive to support. You okay with that? Anything further? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you all. There is no FYI correspondence, so I will open the floor to question period. If anyone has any questions on any item that appeared on our agenda, you may come forward and ask that question. Anyone? None noted. Thank you. We do not have an in-camera session this evening, so I'll move to our confirmatory bylaw, and it's moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading, and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Council meeting held on January 13th, 2020. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. And finally, a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that council adjourn the January 13, 2020 council meeting at 7:50 p.m. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bateman.
Before everybody goes, I picked up a card for Councillor Tadman, just as thinking of you. If you want to pass it around and just wish her a speedy recovery, because she has her surgery tomorrow.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Anything further? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried.